Welcome to the U Thought Wrong podcast, where we share stories of individuals just like you who have found ways to conquer their fears and are excelling at life. Hey everyone, today on U Thought Wrong, I'm sitting down with a man who has spent 18 years at absolute peak of wellness industry. On paper, he's a machine, an Ironman, Ultraman champion, a kinesiologist who has consulted for industry giants like Nike, Adidas, and Othership. But beyond master certifications and the launch of his new longevity venture, Bekin Health, there is a much deeper story. It's a story about identity, the unique pressure of growing up as a twin, hard lessons learned when a high performer finally hits a wall and has to redefine what health actually means. This is Julian Ho. Welcome. Thank you, my man, for being here today.
Thank you, Julian.
I know, another great
here.
Julian. So, I don't meet too many Julians, but when I do, they seem to be very cool people. And, we haven't known each other like super long, but I feel like the connections that we have made over the last, especially year, has really, been extremely appreciative for me, and just like how you've mentored me, coached me, and become friends. I've been in the running world for just a few years, and you've been in it seems like decades now, right?
Yes.
So, before we get to that kind of aspect of it, I want to kind of take a step back. And my mom's a twin, so I really see that kind of dynamic between my mom and my uncle, and just the closeness that they have and the competitiveness that they have. But I wanted to know, it's different for everyone. Sibling love is something, but then twin love and the camaraderie is a whole different realm in itself. How was that growing up, and were you guys competitive, or just really always together doing the same things?
I love that your mom's a twin. When I met her, I could tell that there was some sort of bond and connection there.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that her son is Julian and I'm Julian. So I think both ways it really connected. So when I can connect with a friend's parents or their kids, it really accelerates the connection on a much more homey level.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel a kinship to you, Julian. So thank you again for having me on your podcast, and really, really excited to share and dive deeper than what's shown from the surface. My experience as a twin has shaped much of who I am today, by default, but actually by choice. Being a twin, growing up, you're always compared. We weren't fraternal. So we are fraternal, but we're not identical, but we look identical,
yeah,
which
you guys
is also
look very much alike.
Yeah, it's a rare thing to have that, because fraternal twins often are very, very different. Like your mom, boy, girl.
Yeah.
Some tall, some short. I've seen twins that look like brothers or barely.
Yeah.
So for us, we've grown up looking the same. So automatically, socially, we emit this sameness and this natural comparison. Yeah. The need to look the same. And our parents dressed us similarly. It's sort of a fun perk of having a twin, because you see a mirror image. But out of that, I naturally wanted to expand my identity. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be just another version of someone else, and vice versa. So fiercely independent from that. The competitiveness started naturally, but we grew up with a very positive, aspirational, inspirational home network, and a culture of teamwork, a culture of work ethic, and empathy and care. So my brother and I, although we had different stages of growth spurts, we also had similar struggles. So we both have autoimmune disorders, atopic dermatitis seen through eczema, which is a thickening or an inflammation of the skin. And we both had moments of our upbringing where one struggled more than the other. So that, in essence, connected us, and it helped us deepen our empathy and compassion for each other, because it just hurts when you see someone else struggle.
For sure.
And when
especially when you're that close to them.
When you're that close, I can viscerally feel it, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I want him to feel better. So if I'm not doing too well, he'll do the same thing, and he'll come and help me, he'll soothe me, because he knows what is needed.
For sure.
So the struggles definitely helped us bond. We did go through physical growth spurts, and I, at one phase, advanced my physicality. I just started to eat more, feeling more hungry, much more physical, and I needed to move my energy with things like the eczema through physical activity. So I really dove into that, and with that, increased my metabolism, increased my appetite, and I started getting more fit faster at a younger age, and therefore I started dominating my brother.
Yeah.
We had a basketball court, not like my dad put basically a board on a tree with a rim, and our backyard is not flat at all.
Yeah.
It's like all these random stones. And so you could barely call it a basketball court, but we play one-on-one basketball every day after school from like 3 to 5 before dinner.
Nice.
And I just started dominating him. And one day he got really frustrated and he said, "Quit being a sore winner." And he took the ball one day and then like whipped it across like 3 or 4 backyards and said, "Go get it. I don't want to play anymore." Next day I show up to basketball. He doesn't show up. Next day. And he's just doing it to show me a lesson that he doesn't want to play with a sore winner.
Yeah.
So from that point on, I realized how important sportsmanship was, and how winning or losing, being stoic, being respectable, and having level of sportsmanship and care for the competition was extremely powerful.
Yeah.
So I really dive into that. That's been huge learning. So my brother and I, we're comrades. We go through life together. We check in. We loved the games like Super Nintendo. We love like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like cooperative team games as opposed to versus games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. That's just like the same thing of like playing one-on-one. We enjoyed it to a point, but we'd rather play on the same team. And that really shaped our childhood.
Nice. Yeah. And I feel like that's a lot of just siblings too. You can see the dynamics of those individual games that can get out of hand, and then just it doesn't end well most of the time, right? So that's great. And like to hear you talk about like understanding a little bit more of your health, was that also possibly like a turning point for getting into the health and wellness space, or did that happen a little bit later when you traveled a bit more?
Absolutely. I wasn't really thinking about a career in health, wellness, and fitness when I was young. But
when did that start, you think?
Well, I would say in high school, having teachers and career counselors see potential in someone and doing it very nuanced. And I definitely felt my coaches, because I chose to involve myself and engage with the career counselors, engage with my physical education department, engage with my coach, I took the first step, and therefore they responded. Whereas a lot of young people just don't do anything. They're not proactive. They're not active in their engagement and their involvement. I was just an A type. I love getting involved. I love being a part of the associations, the clubs, the councils. I just liked to involve myself in the entire school experience. And so from that, I had great guidance, teachers that would look out for me and give me some insights and share with me what they thought would be great for me. So those nudges compounded into a path that illuminated for me, but again, not dictated for me, but illuminated for me and said, hey, this is a door you could walk through. And I definitely saw that was a great use of my health knowledge, my academic knowledge, and also my physical abilities and gifts. My health struggles with skin definitely shaped socially how I am now. Back then, I was very socially anxious. I would get made fun of and bullied for how I looked, whether it's direct bullying or indirect, not being included in things, being isolated because I couldn't
wanting
do
to be near you.
And I was just naturally uncomfortable in my own skin physically, so I would not. Although I am an extrovert, I would definitely have introverted moments, and I would exclude myself,
For sure.
and also my relationship to women and girls and that whole culture of, like mixing with the opposite sex. Of course, you think about it a lot. That's
For
what
sure.
you want. And so
Especially when you're going through high school.
oh my God, high school days, slow dances, Valentine's, like these kinds of things when you're young, hormones are going like crazy. So it definitely shaped how I was socially. And I found that playing sports and being involved in school was a way for me to move away from that stuff and allow me to focus my energy in a really positive manner. And even till now, I've used my skin as a place for discomfort, and a learning and a catalyst to not necessarily fix it, but be at one with it and then shift into understanding it.
Yeah.
When I understood inflammation, when I understood gut health spawned from this stuff, then I was able to really use my mental faculties in education and curiosity to then move through it and befriend it, so to speak.
Yeah, so that's you went through kinesiology. Like that's not an easy course to go through, but as you said, like you're learning about yourself at the same time. And then what did like ultra running come before you kind of became a personal trainer, or did it kind of all happen at the same time? Or was it when you were traveling a lot too, right? Like how does that all come together for you?
Running itself was something that I was good at when I was young. Cross-country teams are typically a motley crew of kids that didn't really have any sport. You just had to run.
Yeah.
For me, I was really good at a lot of sports, and this may come off as bragging, but it's not. It's literally teachers from the cross-country team said, "Hey, Julian, could you help us out? Join the cross-country team. We know it's in between your basketball and your soccer season. Just come and more kids will come." So just by doing that, signing up for the cross-country team, other kids joined it. Oh yeah, Julian's doing it. And I rallied people too.
Yeah.
So natural form of leadership.
I wish I had someone like that.
Yeah.
I was just 100% into like rugby, just focused on that mainly. And I had different sports and stuff growing up, but like I never got into that aspect of it at a younger age, and I kind of wish I did now.
Yeah, I mean, I was naturally good at it.
Yeah.
And then it never became a full-on sport that I considered until like later in my 20s, like mid-20s.
Yeah.
But I always used it as a form of exercise, as a form of improving my fitness for my sports.
Yeah.
It was only until after university that I started getting into the profession more seriously. And I was on a mission to be unique, understand my USP, unique selling position or proposition. And that came from me wanting to be different from my twin.
Yeah. I was going to say, how much of that played a factor of wanting to just, as you said before, having your own identity, right?
Huge. Yeah. I saw along the industry, how can I be different? So part of running became one of those things, and I was naturally gifted at it. So I went from 10K and jumped into 42K right away. Within that first marathon, I qualified for Boston.
Nice.
And that told me right away that I was doing the right thing. I was pretty good at it. I didn't really think too much about ultras until I got probably about 4 or 5 years of marathoning under my belt, from like 22 till like 26, 27, because I wanted to understand the sport and use that as something that would differentiate me amongst my other trainers, coaches, peers in the industry. I really enjoyed listening to podcasts when podcasts became more popular with people like Tim Ferriss for our work week podcast. And I found that running gave me the time. It opened my mind, and I was able to digest and soak up so much from podcasts while on a run, rather than sitting there and just listening in the car. So I used podcast listening and audiobook listening as a part of my long run training. And that took me on a journey of going into ultra. I remember one of my runs, I was aiming to do a 30K, prepping for 42, and I ended up doing 50 kilometers.
You're just in the zone.
Just in the zone, listening to 2 podcasts that were like long form, like 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
You're like, I don't want to stop this right now.
Yeah, I just kept going. So I also wanted to shift out of marathoning when I hit a wall. When I hit a 2:48, I maxed out with that speed, and I realized if I wanted to get my ultimate goal of sub 2:45, it would take a bit more, a lot more time, more specific training in terms of marathoning. I didn't want to do that. I just felt like I'd run its course, and I'd rather explore more. So then I said, why don't I do 50K, 56K? And I looked into trail. One guy said to me, why don't you try trail running? It is so challenging. It's like running double a marathon. And you know this. 56K Muskoka was my first, and that I suggested that be your first.
Yeah, and that was my first.
My God, it bulldozes you. You realize there's so much more to an ultra with running trails and temperature than running marathons.
Yeah.
And that opened my eyes. As much as I didn't like it and I felt extreme discomfort, I felt extreme pleasure.
Yeah.
And much more connection to nature and therefore to myself. So that's sort of how I kind of got into ultra.
Nice. Yeah. I remember talking to you last summer being like, oh, which one should I sign up for? You mentioned the Limberlost one. So I signed up for it. I'm like, what was your time? You're just so humble. Oh, just take a look. And I'm like, oh, let me take a look. Oh, first place. Okay, I get it. just first place in it. But yeah, that one is a hell of a course. And like when I mention it to people, they're just like, oh, you did that one like as your first?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And I can remember being, it was one of those humid days too. And like in the morning, it's not that bad. The first lap wasn't that bad. I kind of skipped on some of my fueling for the second lap, which was the stupidest thing to do because I had it all set up and prepared. And then halfway through, I'm just like, it started to get really hot. Started cramping. This was my first time like really cramping hard like that, and like the ankles felt broken. I had the most blisters I've ever had in my life, but kept going. And like third lap, I'm just like, I can just quit now. And then it's still good. I'm like, okay, no, one more lap. Finished it.
What would Julian do?
Yeah, and finished it, and I was like, oh, I hated this. And yeah, like a week later, I'm like, okay, what's the next challenge?
Yes.
Right? How is that feeling for you of that hitting that like discomfort zone, and just wanting to kind of feel it and be with it, and then at the same time overcome it? Like what was that first moment for you, like when you experienced that and that discomfort?
Probably the same as you.
Yeah.
I think you go through phases for sure in your maturity in the world of ultra. In the beginnings, you're just hitting new data points, new sensations. So with a growth mindset, with a beginner's mind, the philosophy of Shoshin is like a child, as if you were experiencing for the first time. But if you set an intention off the bat and you say, I'm open to anything, whether it's success, whether it's happy, joy, fear, anxiety, pain, discomfort, regret, remorse, all these sensations and emotions. If you are open to all of that stuff, then you're setting yourself up for quote unquote success.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, physically and physiologically, it was terribly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it was a stepping stone that I knew I needed to get through.
Yeah.
And the expectation is to just complete it.
Yeah.
However, whatever you need to do. And then as you mature through those experiences with more of them, your relationship to discomfort, pain, mental fatigue, cloudiness, doubt, these all become more tangible, and you create more space to even see them. Mm-hmm. So you don't just experience them full on, you then understand and can expect what they could feel like, and then you create some spaciousness between them. After you hit 2 or 3 ultras, then you know what to expect, you know how to mitigate for that, and then you can start to control it. Because you know at kilometer 30, this is when my body typically starts to feel this like burning in my hamstrings, maybe a little bit of cramping. So you've already started to fuel and strategically implement strategies, techniques and tactics that help mitigate that. So you roll with the punches, and eventually you learn to anticipate them.
Yeah.
You learn to sit with them and be with them. And that's where it goes from a mental and a physical experience, of course, emotional.
Yeah.
But then you can get into more of the spiritual, because you go in then, now I do, with what can I take away from this race?
Yeah.
What are the learnings and the lessons that I'm going to set myself up with for not just this race, but the following races and life?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And where are you at now in your ultra realm of things? You know, you did some amazing runs last year, and then did you qualify or sign up for
Both.
UTMB?
Yeah.
And you're in it for this year?
Not yet.
Okay.
So I've been on a journey, about 20-year journey, to get to the UTMB finals. UTMB stands for Ultra Tour de Mont Blanc, and it is the most popular and arguably most difficult 48-hour ultra race.
And what's the elevation on that?
That's around 9,000 meters, which is pretty badass.
It's crazy.
And it's in the Alps, and it traverses France, Italy, and Switzerland, which is what makes Mont Blanc range very special. So I did the hike, the Tour de Mont Blanc, with a company when I was in my 20s as my first European trip by myself, backpacking.
Yeah.
And we did it over 5 days, 100 kilometers. And at the end of that tour, this hiking tour, we saw these ultra runners, and to me, they just looked like superheroes. Yeah. They were kitted out with vests, shoes, poles, all that stuff, sunglasses. They just looked epic. And so my tour guide I'd asked, hey, who are these people? Why are there so many of the same kind of like soldier-like people? They're like, oh, these are ultra runners. And like the way that this guy described it almost spoke of them as like the SWAT team, as like a super being. Yeah. And that just got me fascinated. And so that glimmer of inspiration became an aspiration for me. And so now, over the last 20 years, I've been building up towards running the Tour de Mont Blanc. And what is required is a certain number of points and a certain number of races. Okay. So you have to qualify by doing a certain number of ultra races within the UTMB series, which will then give you the opportunity to apply. So it's not just anyone applies. Just like Boston or Kona for Ironman, you have to accumulate a certain number of points. They call them stones. And then you can then get in to the lottery. And then from lottery, you might get picked. I think it's like 15% chance that you'll get it. Yeah. But the more stones you accumulate over the years, and the higher your score, your index based on ranking, which is your ranking, your speed, your number of races accomplished, the more likelihood you're going to get in. So last year I put my name in the hat, didn't get chosen, but I was able to, I decided I'm going to run the Alps. I want to get used to it. I want to figure it out. So I did the Waldstrubel in Switzerland, and it was an amazing 110K race. Wow. And that gave me a real amount of confidence. It's really important for ultra runners to do races that are similar to the goal race if you can't get into your goal race. Specificity and practice on the same terrain is super, super important.
Especially at that elevation.
Confidence. I mean, it's challenging to run something like the Alps when you're living in the flatlands of Ontario. Yeah. So did a lot of Stairmaster, step climber, a lot of uphill running, hours and hours at Riverdale Park, which is a small hill that's like 60 meters in downtown Toronto, for those who don't know. Hours and hours on that, but found my mountain goat status and did great work last year, and hoping to take that into this year.
Amazing. And with being in like peak shape, let's say, and going through all that, and then going through like health issues, did it help you find even more of yourself to be into kind of going to where you are today with longevity, and just understanding your body even more? Like, was there some races where you just like didn't fuel properly, or you learned something dramatically about your body that, not like a crisis, but something that along those lines?
I definitely learned a lot about nutrition, about my gut health, but I also learned a lot about the muscles and the connective tissues, bones. I realized that many of my counterparts would get injured, like Achilles tendonitis,
Yeah, I'm dealing with that.
patellofemoral pain syndrome, a lot of psoas and lower back issues. And so I thought, how do I mitigate this? How do I manage this? So I really invested more time in mobility training.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of runners don't stretch. They don't like to stretch. They don't like to mobilize. They don't really take care of their joints. Maybe it's because they'd rather do mileage.
Yeah.
But I grew up playing sports, and I grew up knowing how important an athletic body is. Not just a fit body, an athletic body is, because you're so much more tuned in and dialed into your body. And I'm more of a sensitive human being. So for me, I really dove deep into recovery, the science of recovery, and mobility training was immensely important to my prevention of injury, injury proofing, so to speak. It allowed me to maneuver my body with more body control, especially since the terrain of ultra can be so random.
Yeah, it throws your whole body
Yeah,
off.
so I remember like twisting my ankle a bunch of times and actually having it just bounce back. Like it wasn't really twisted. It wasn't sprained. It would just go into a deeper range of motion, come back out. But I noticed that the same runners would probably twist and it would strain and it would not repair from that because they didn't have access to range of motion, nor did they have stability within that ankle joint. So I doubled down on mobility and made it a big part of my protocol during and after my races and my training runs. And, knock on wood, I haven't had any hardcore accident or injury that's taken me away from the sport all these years. Yeah. So that's a big part of, I guess, my claim to fame is self-coaching and self-clinicking, being a clinician to myself.
Well, it's not just self-coaching because you coach so many great people and athletes. And even when I mentioned to people that I was going to get into my first ultra and I was talking about you, they're just like, oh, he's the mobility king. Like, you're in good hands. You're going to be doing so well. And that was like, I always did a couple of stretches before, but you really like helped me dial in even more about, just getting those certain stretches in. And recovery, and like just for the businesses that you've built too, recovery has been a huge thing. Before we get into like Bekin Health, like what was your connection with bringing different companies, especially into Toronto, to include recovery like cold tubs and the saunas?
Every year I decide to take on 3 new training modalities, and I really loved contrast therapy. So a buddy of mine, Martin, who is an Olympic volleyball player, he was really getting into breath work, ice baths, a bit of sauna. And he was in Australia and I was here, and we like to jam out on really cool innovations. And this was probably, when I was like 26, and we connected and talked about the latest and greatest. And he was like, dude, I'm converting my freezer into a cold tub.
Nice.
And I'm doing all this breathwork stuff. There's this guy, his name's Wim Hof.
Yeah.
So this is like way back before people really knew about this stuff. It was a bit of a subculture. And so I started getting into it as well and connecting to founder of Othership, Robbie. We started talking about this stuff. And lo and behold, we started building and talking and co-creating, and I started to really dive deep into contrast therapy, and luckily Othership was there. So for me, contrast therapy was a great modality that helped accent my mobility and my running, and I did a lot of body work as well, seeking out chiros and physios and manual therapists. So I made sure that recovery was a big part of my ultra game, to manage inflammation, to help recover faster so I could train smarter with higher quality mileage as opposed to training on sore, tired legs.
Yeah.
So also understanding the holistic aspect, since I'm quite a holistic functional fitness coach, knowing the internal systems and the way that the nervous system responds to exercise stress requires you to understand the internal organs and how they buffer. For example, like your pH and your acidity levels, your blood lactate levels, all of the metabolites and the things that need to move through your lymphatic system, waste product removal, all of these things that just reside in your body after a hardcore run, you need to recover quick. So from contrast therapy, from sauna and ice bath, mobility, I really took recovery as a huge driver, and I now see it as a skill. I call it recoverability. So recoverability, the speed in which you can recover, increases the ceiling of your potential as an athlete. So you might be capped at a certain peak level of performance. The only way to push through that is not continuing to push. It's actually recovering better. And as you recover better, you expand that range. And therefore, you can go into untapped potential in a much more safer and also longevity-based way.
For sure. Okay, so talking about, we'll kind of go into the longevity realm of where you're guiding yourself with Bekin Health. You've kind of touched on, like, I believe why you're getting into it, but there's more to it in the sense of like community, and you're talking about more longevity. It goes hand in hand with the recovery aspect of it, but explain more of what Bekin Health is and why you're doing it.
So we are a company that will foster longevity and human performance. We'll eventually build a studio and headquarters. It is multifaceted, but the work comes from research and innovation in this field. It also comes through the social innovation side of things, and of course the technical, which is how we create bodies that can master the biometrics that we analyze and capture. In a nutshell, I hope that Bekin Health, Bekin is spelled Bekin, for many reasons. Wordplay of beacon of hope. A chance for people to see health, wellness, fitness, not just for the short term and not just for the long term of their lives, but for generations to come. How we'll do it is a work in progress. I've been told by many business friends, you got to distill what Bekin is, and you got to package it in a way that's marketable to a specific audience. And true, I understand that. Sometimes it's a bit of a struggle to share exactly what it is. Just like sharing what a human is. Like Julian Compton isn't just Julian Compton, the real estate guy. He's not just the ultra runner. He's not just the community guy. He's all of it. So as a holistic system, it's very difficult to describe who you are in just a succinct amount of words. For us, we have many taglines like vitality for all, advancing healthspan and longevity for generations to come. We're a network organization that wants to galvanize community in efforts to expand and share what a future of health and vitality are.
And I see it as kind of like, I think you touched on it too within what you guys are talking about when you promote it, but blue zones and and like there's not only one blue zone, and it's not only in one country, it's all different countries, and it's all for various reasons, but they have similar lifespans. There's key points that they each have, but it's not, as you said, not their identity, so I love how you are open to, letting it be.
Let it take shape,
Yeah, you
as
know.
it needs. Yeah, the problem that we are trying to solve is the gap between healthspan and lifespan. So healthspan is the number of quality years that you live in your life, and typically in North America, it's around 65. The lifespan that's been recorded in terms of average is around 80 to 85. So there's like a 15 to 20 year gap between living a high quality of life, free of disease and chronic illness. But once you hit the 65 plus, we've seen 2, 3 diseases or chronic illnesses pop up really quickly. My parents are an example of that.
Yeah.
And lifespan is the total number of years that you live. So we have a chronological, but we also have the biological. So we're trying to solve for that gap, as with many of the people on this planet, like Dr. Peter Attia, the Dr. Rhonda Patricks, the Hubermans, the people that are putting out great information. They understand this problem, and it's going to be solved. We know it's going to be solved, but can we solve it in a way that systematically sets us up for more positive change?
Yeah.
Because there's many people who want in on this problem. You have, capital gains and people who are looking to make money off of this via industry, are looking to capitalize on the chance to maybe put in pharmaceuticals into it, the modalities that are not as congruent to the many, maybe just benefiting the few. And so my and Bekin's social mission is to make it accessible for people. And it takes a lot of work to understand what are the social determinants of health, who are the stakeholders involved. So we've outlined 5 sectors: medicine, business, wellness, technology, and social innovation or policy. And our aim is to gather these people and continue to create systems that can intervene but also benefit many people. And it's a difficult challenge. Every place in this planet has their own challenges. So how can we do it within the local Toronto? So part of Bekin is creating these events, these modern networking events. These are called what we call healthspan circles. And we have one per quarter, 30 people who are leaders and thought leaders and action leaders looking to make change in the world of how we disseminate health. So that's one of our things. But we also know on a personal level, we want to be able to shift from the way things are done for me on a personal training level and a physical coaching level. Can we take a more personalized approach that's doesn't commodify fitness and wellness, but personalize it and make it curated that speaks to the whole human. So that's why you see my brand is a holistic fitness coach. Is I consider the mental, the physical, the emotional, the social, the occupational. So all the things, all the parts of who you are need to be satisfied in order for a personalized program or system to embed itself and work within your lifestyle. So it is a lifestyle problem
for sure
at the end of the day. And so we are ultimately a lifestyle company at the same time that specializes in longevity and human performance.
And like just having you as my coach, last year and mentor, I felt that, right? It didn't feel like, I'm going to go do some training with Julian. I was excited. We chat. We're very similar levels of like spirituality and of like growth. So it was just like catching up with you, and I'm like, like an hour's gone by, and I was hurting for sure because you put me through some stuff, but didn't seem that I'm like, okay, this is not that bad. But then doing a couple rounds of it, just like, okay, like it's hitting the specific spots that like I need working, right? So it was great in that aspect too. And like what I'm seeing you do now, and you touched on it at our event last weekend of, the vigorous little like spurts of movement and exercise, and then it kind of just shows that you don't need the long gym sessions and everything, like as you said, to fit it into your lifestyle, and how is this something new that you did kind of this year? Because I didn't see you do it too much last year. And is that kind of one of the new things that you're adding that you mentioned for this year?
Yeah, there's always going to be research that comes out.
Yeah.
So Bekin Health and myself, we want to be able to share new research to people and make longevity and health span more accessible, whether it be through education, through exercise, through sharing insights and knowledge from other experts. So what you're speaking about is an acronym called VILPA, VILPA, Vigorous Intermittent Lifestyle Physical Activity.
Nice.
And this is a new piece of evidence that shows we don't need the traditional 3 times a week of 1 hour block of vigorous exercise. We can get similar health benefits, not necessarily performance benefits. There's a differentiation. Health benefits that reduce all-cause mortality when you do small 3 to 5 minute bouts of intense, vigorous movements. That could be brisk walking, going up the stairs, not 1 by 1, but 2 by 2s, where you accelerate your heart rate for just a short period of time, maybe carrying the groceries, maybe doing a couple of push-ups, a couple of squats throughout the day as it falls congruently to your lifestyle. So these are called movement snacks. And the research has shown that we benefit just as much from VILPA as we do from the 3 traditional times a week kind of exercise protocol. The reason being is, and I think that it's more beneficial because it forms to your lifestyle, to your daily schedule. You don't have to stress over getting to a workout session, and you're starting to do it as a habit. You break up the day. So oftentimes, most people, the main issue that's causing this discrepancy between the age of 65 to 80, 85 is the sedentary lifestyle. Sedentary is the new smoking, is the new issue that we all have to work through. Movement is the medicine to that, which is a big part of what we do at Bekin. Movement is medicine. So if you can break up the day with these movement snacks and benefit from it, not just to mobilize the body and feel better, more focused at work, you can then let those small compound gains improve your health, improve your heart, improve your digestion. There's so much to it. So logistically, we kind of get in our own way. It's really nice to hear for people, because there's some people who can't afford a gym membership, can't afford to do a one-on-one training session. They just need to do their every day, but do it with a slight change in the parameters. And for researchers and places like Bekin Health, we want to make that information available to people and increase a culture of more physical activity, because blue zones do that. Blue zones are areas in the world that are most densely populated with people that are 100 years or so in age. And studies have shown that there are specific habits and behaviors that they take on. And a big part of Bekin Health is community. And if we can create a community that matches a culture of longevity practices, we create this accountability. We create an identity and a lifestyle that's similar to blue zones. So who's to say that maybe one day Bekin Health can say, hey, we created Toronto as a blue zone.
And that's what it's about, like just the snowball effect. Like if you can just do a few movements throughout the day, then maybe that will get you outside a little bit more the following week. And then all of a sudden you're just randomly chatting with people outside. And that's how you can kind of, just gain that community within your area, right? Like that's what I love my area. Grew up here and I do my runs, and I see certain people at the same time when I do certain runs, say hi, and see them in the grocery store, talk to them, they chat what's going on, see what I'm doing at the school.
Kick out a couple of squats and push-ups right in front of them
Yeah.
and be like, what are you doing? Oh, we're doing Vilpa.
Yeah.
Join in.
Well, just even like when we were at the event, like I saw a couple of my buddies like looking at you and you were doing some push-ups and your stretches and like, what are you doing? And then you kind of explain that and you're just like, everyone's like it, when you put it in like that, in the way that you put it in layman terms, people are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's just like, I kind of, it reminded me of just doing more mobility. Like people are like, oh, do you have to do yoga? Like hold it for 30 seconds to a minute. And it's just like, well, I've been doing mobility. I'm just been doing like 7 to 10 minutes in the morning. And I don't do any like long stretches, but I feel more limber than I did when I was going to do yoga once or twice a week. So I compare it to that too, right? And I think just at the end of the day, it's just getting moving, right? And as you said, movement is key. And I think it's a snowball effect for mentally to be able to chat with people. After COVID, it's been a little bit harder, but I feel like, when you're out, like just even the Jays getting further into the playoffs, I think brought a lot of people together. Yep. Just you see the bars
rally together around
and then you realize, you look around and it's like, we're all in the same team here. Yep. Just why do we have to like
fight against each other? Yeah, totally.
That kind of stuff, right?
I think the accessibility approach comes down to really great habits, and habits can be disseminated in layman's terms quite easily. So a really influential book over the last 2 years for me was James Clear, Atomic Habits. And when we speak about complex things through analogies, that definitely makes it much more digestible for a lot of people. So when we talk about mobility, you're just like, oh yeah, it's stretching. No, it's, if you can relate it to, and I always do this and I share this to my classes and students and everyone that I come across, mobility training is like brushing and flossing your teeth, but for your joints.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that when we first met.
Yeah, and we floss and brush our teeth. I don't really floss as much as I should be, and I'm sure many people can attest to that.
That to me every time,
right? Every time. But I do brush every day, twice a day, 2 minutes. We just know to do that. And why do we do it? Because we don't want cavities. We don't want gum disease. We don't want bad breath. So we need to see the same thing for what's not seen. So within our joints, it's the same makeup. Material makeup. And if we don't floss and brush our joints, teeth through mobility training, you're going to establish cavities, which are arthritis. You're going to increase disease, inflammation. So if we can create a similar story and something that's relatable
for sure
through an analogy like that, that's the responsibility of a coach, of an expert, of a studio like Bekin Health. Our job is to take that information and make it digestible for people for the everyday. And that's where accessibility comes from. Information. Accessibility can be through many other ways too, like monetary, but information like this is free. So why be gatekeepers? Let's make things open source. And that's some of the issues that I have with some places. There's a lot of gatekeeping happening. And you got to pay to play or pay to understand. So we want to build programming and offerings that service everyone and then complement the things that we need to do to get food on our tables, but also help others people succeed in the way that they need as well. So we just want to create a system. That's why it's a slow build.
For sure.
And I'm not going to distill it to one specific thing. I think it just will take time.
For sure. And I've seen you over the last year kind of, not that I've known you long, but just grow in the sense that I got a lot of feelings that you give a lot, right? And you don't necessarily feel that you're getting it back. Is that kind of a feeling that you are taking with Bekin, in the sense that like you've done it all with like other people and you've given your time to help them grow their stuff? Like, is this your time now for you?
Yeah, so giving a lot and giving is filling my cup as well. It's information that I've taken in that I really enjoyed on a passionate level of honing and sharing to, my clients, my friends, my family, and other companies that I consult with. Receiving can be in many ways. I think at this stage of my career and life, I want to be able to house the things that I put out there within my own concept, my own studio, my own place, my own business. Not that I didn't enjoy giving, sharing, consulting, providing guidance to other companies to help grow them. I needed to go through that to come to this point. So there was no resentment on that. It's a stepping stone.
Okay,
It was a message for me to know, okay, now I need to consolidate all of this energy and bring it back to me and bring it back and honor the work that I've done.
Yeah. And information
with
that you've
others
learned.
And towards myself and towards my community. So having a more freedom and autonomy and agency over how things are conducted, how things are done, definitely is why I've created Bekin Health and the studio that'll happen this year. So
exciting.
I'm really pumped for that, and I think it's important to fill my own cup and have a place that I can call my own. Yeah. It's just one of those things as an experienced veteran, established practitioner. It's something on the notch of the belt because I've done so many titles, jobs in this industry, but being a business owner hasn't been on that list yet.
Yeah.
So now's the time to try it out.
Here we are. And kind of, thinking about your future, we had such a great event this past weekend, and we were able to create vision boards, and yours was, I think, extremely intentional compared to everyone else because a lot of people hadn't done it before, and that was the whole point, to have different kind of levels to the energy that was there. And you were talking about your word for this year and your word for last year and just your vision. Can you kind of expand on that for what you were talking about there and share your future vision of Julian and Bekin?
Yeah. So I always use past as a place of reference and future as a place of inspiration for the present moment. And I feel the word harmony is a word that I want to exploit further and explore further this year based on last year's consolidating exploration. I did so much exploration last year. I traveled a lot. I wore many hats. And at the end of the year, I wanted to consolidate and create a bit more lightness. So near the end of last year, I started purging away things, closing doors, really speaking to the lunar calendar of the Chinese zodiac, which is the year of the snake, shedding the skin. Nice. So I did a lot of exploration, butterflied my way from many projects, then came down to a point where I needed to, again, shed, close, and consolidate. And now this year's an act to take the consolidated efforts and focus on fewer things more deeply. And I want to create more harmony between those things that I'm doubling down on so that I'm not just paving the path to 2026, but to 2036. I see this year as the seeds, a build year, a co-creation year for constructs and a framework and a structure for my next 10 years. And with that approach to goal setting and intention setting and visioning, it gives me a lot more awareness and control, and at the same time it helps me navigate with guardrails that I use as boundaries. That's really important when we go into these exercises, is you definitely want to do everything, your wants and needs, and push. But I think that the patience approach and doing it with detailed, meticulous thinking and strategic planning really helps set the tone and pace, just like I would in an ultramarathon race. Yeah. Oftentimes, I would go out too fast, burn out, and then suffer the rest of it. But this is a real chance to embody my ultra and see the next 10 years as an ultra race. Yeah. So now is the time to prepare the equipment, understand my fueling needs, who's on my team, how do I want to approach this race, and see what's coming ahead. So if I know that the mountain ahead is creating my studio, I know that that's there. Yeah. So I'm going to do my best to equip myself and set my pace up for success. Know that there's going to be the ups and downs,
for sure.
But also manage and what I can use, my tools, techniques to mitigate that, so I don't burn myself out.
For sure.
So I don't stretch myself beyond and resent the whole process. So yeah, my life is kind of like a parallel, an analogy to ultra running.
I love it. So let's wrap up there. Just one last question that I always ask folks is, what would you tell your younger self and your future self now?
I mean, this is fresh off of, and it might sound very, very functional, but this is fresh off of listening to a podcast from Dr. Peter Attia about cardio and the importance of working on your cardio. And it speaks to longevity and health span, is why do we do this? Why do we work on, our strength and our mobility? It's optionality. Yeah. Creating options for yourself. Options like when I'm helping my clients, my elder clients, I want them to have the option to play with their grandkids on the floor, to be fiercely independent, to arrive to a physical screen with a doctor with all green lights. I want them to have those options. Same to my younger self. If I were to share to my younger self, try as many things as possible, because once you've opened all these doors, you have all of these options available to you. Yeah. And I subscribe to breadth. Of course, over time, you'll achieve depth. There's some people who say, maybe you should just do one thing and stay with that one thing. Yeah. But in my experience, I've experienced the one thing, and I've created blind spots. Yeah. So there's many books about this. One book in particular, David Epstein, called Range. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if I was, a coach or a teacher to my younger self, I would talk to the kid about developing range and further that, because I naturally did it. So, creating options. I don't know how spiritual that is, which is perfect. Typically an expectation for many people when they speak to me as a Zen master. But optionality is more of a practical piece to it.
No, I love it, man. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to seeing what the next few years has for you.
Thank you, Jules.
Thanks, man. All right. Thank you, guys. We all have fears, and that's okay. We hope that we have given you something to help you conquer some of your fears so you too can continue to excel at life. Thank you for listening to You Thought Wrong.